it wasn't that long ago that we saw some pretty massive gains on Sword and Shield booster boxes pretty much across the board, and a lot of those have leveled off or even started to decline. And something I noticed today was we've seen some singles start to move, and even some of the booster boxes start to move again. And we're going to jump straight into it, we're going to start off with Evolving Skies, but I have to talk about the Rayquaza first. Now, this is one of those cards that I've talked about as being, if this wasn't in Evolving Skies, this could have carried, its own set and been the chase card. And this card just recently hit, I think, another interesting price point, another stepping stone along the way. The Rayquaza on TCG Player is now an $800 card. Okay, 3 months ago, this was a $500 card. It's up 63% in the past 3 months, and even in the past month, continuing to climb 10%. So this is pretty massive gains here, and as the booster box has like really tapered off, it seems like some of these other singles from Evolving Skies are starting to catch up, right? The Moonbreon was so high, the booster box was so high. Comparatively, these singles are catching up right now, and it's not just the Rayquaza you'll see in a second, but last solds you can see there are some in the 700s, but you can see a lot in the 800s, and then like a really OC copy in the 500s. But these near mint copies getting in the $800 mark for the Rayquaza. Lowest listed from a starred seller is 800, as you guys can see here. Then the booster box. So are we at the bottom for the booster box? It shot up 3 months ago. It was $900. It shot up to around 1350, peaked kind of as high as 1400. I know there was definitely sales in the 1400s right here, and then it's kind of just tapered down off into like high 1200s, low 1300s, and you can see right here, looks like it's shooting up maybe a little bit. We might have seen the end of the fall because it is down around 3% just in the past month. So it looks like maybe leveling off, and you can see if we zoom out to the 1 year on Evolving Skies, something important to note if you're newer to this hobby. Look at where the box was for a long time. March of last year, and it did dip a little, but not too much really. March of last year till about September, it didn't do anything, right? It just stayed stagnant. It just held its price. It held the course before it started to move up. So pretty big growth here, cooling off. We'll see, where if it levels off, if it goes on another run, something to keep an eye on. But, the booster box price has been going down while we've seen cards like the Rayquaza and now the Umbreon V continuing to move up. Now, we might have hit at least a temporary plateau for the Umbreon V. Really nice card. It's up 61% in the past 3 months, just under $300. You'll see on here sales. There are some kind of at that $300 range. Some of them kind of a little bit below, right? It's just not quite holding at that 300. There was some back here that I think are boosting the market price currently 390, 335, 320, right? So you could see 315. So there was $300 sales, and looks like it's come down just a little bit recently. So the Umbreon V, if we zoom out right here, you can see we're starting to get to the point where we can't see on the 1 year chart too much before the alt art boom, which is what I like to call. It was kind of May of last year, but a year ago this was a $100 card. Alt art boom ran it up to around 200. It came back down, settled around 140, and now we're gonna call it 280. I'm gonna say 280 ish, in the $200 range, definitely not in the 300s. But the Umbreon V moving. We also have the Dragonite V, the Sleepy Dragonite, continuing to move up. Like, look at this chart. It's just a very linear slope, 34% in the past 3 months, going from 170 to 230. You can see pretty consistent sales, all in that as high as 250, as low as 220, or one as high as 260 rather. Those continuing to move up. Such a nice card. I really love this Dragonite card a lot. We did pull this on the channel quite a while ago. Lowest listed is at 250 from a starred seller, which is above market price. There's only 25 copies available, so maybe the Dragonite will continue to run. If we zoom out again, you're going to see a similar thing. A year ago, this was a $100 card. Alt Art Boom pushed it up to almost 200. Came back down around 120, 125, 126 before going on its run that it's on now. And then we have the lesser. I call them. I shouldn't call them the lessers because that's like talking down on them. But we have the lesser Rayquaza, just the V. This one's been moving as well. This one's in the $200 range now. 3 months ago this was a $125 card. Now we're at 214. We could see last sold's 200, 180, 240. A PSA 10 in here at 400, 250, 250. So quite a few 250 sales. High ones, low twos. It is varying just a little bit. 37 copies currently available. We'll zoom out to the 1 year. Similar story. 75 a year ago, ran up to 150, settled at 100 was the new low, and now we're seeing 200 as the new current price on TCG Player. Lowest listed for an English copy, we have to go to page 2 if you want to see a starred seller, and it looks like it's OC, but there's another one right here, 230, which would be above market price. So we'll see if the V can continue to move up as well. Something to keep an eye on. And then real quick, we are doing a pretty massive giveaway on the channel. I'm pretty excited about it. You can watch this video right here. I'll also link it at the end of the video where it's like Surging Sparks Booster Box, Prismatic, ETB, 151, tons of stuff that we're giving away on the channel as we push towards 20K subs. So if you want to enter, go watch that video so you guys can see how to enter. But I want to get back to the cards. I don't want to spend too long on that. And then we have some other cards that have moved up a lot, and they are plateauing just a little bit. Not for too long. We got the Leafeon, the VMAX. 3 months ago, this was a sub $300 card, just barely. And now we're at, 440, 450, pretty much $450. You can see last sold right here, 450. One as high as 492. Another one, a few actually at 492 here. And then one as low as 386 and 350. So 447 market. We look at the 1 year chart, similar pattern. A year ago, though, this is one of those ones that starts to get a little wild too. A year ago, $160 for this card. Alt Art Boom pushed it up to 350. Came back down, settled around 250, 260, and now we're at 440, 450-ish. And if we want to find lowest listed right here, we're at $450. And the reason I bring up the starred sellers, just because I get some comments on it, just because they have the best feedback. They usually have the most sales. Okay, it's just like when you buy something on eBay, you want to buy from a top rated seller, usually somebody who has a lot of feedback. Okay, so that's all it is. The Sylveon is, this one has been, it plateaued around it's been plateaued for about a month, right, in that 420 mark, and it's just kind of been there, but it is still up 82% in the past 3 months. It went from 230 to that $400 mark. We're going to see probably a similar chart here as well, right? So this is the story. This is the chart story. $130 a year ago on the Sylveon VMAX, and it ran up to 270 was the peak, came back down to like 190 was the low, before shooting from 190 to 430. Last sold's as high as 480, as low as 379. So, and a lot in the upper 400s as well. Lowest listed 425 currently, so that's right about at market, just maybe a tinge below. The Glaceon, similar as well. This is the last one from Evolving Skies, and we're going to move on to some other sets, but the Glaceon VMAX here is up 42% in the past 3 months, 258 to about 370-ish. They got market at 370. Most recent sale at 350. And looks like we do have some in the 400s. So that'd be interesting to see if the Glaceon can push to the $400 mark to match those other Eeveelutions being there. Some as low as, it looks like 350 the low, and then 420 being the high of the most recent sales. Similar chart here. You can see a year ago 150, then went to 315, back down to around 200, and then up to nearing $400. So that's kind of where some of the stuff from Evolving Skies is at. Then we have Lost Origin. This box is actually up in the past month, so it looks like it may have found its bottom and now it's moving its way back up again. It's up 16% in the past month, and you'll see there was a ton of sales, and this happened on Fusion Strike as well. You'll see when we pull that one up, ton of sales right here. Somebody bought a bunch on February 27th, so that helped. I think that helped push the price up. So we're nearing $400 here on the Evolving Skies box. It ran up in January to almost 400, and it came back down to it looks like 340. 340 was the low, and now it's kind of shooting back up again. Sales in the high threes, low 400s for Lost Origin. The chase card from the set. I know we didn't talk about the Moonbryon in this video. It's just kind of been there's some manipulation happening right now. It looks like on the Moonbryon, so I didn't want to. There's some weird sales going on, so the chart didn't look very good. It wasn't right. It wasn't accurate. So that's why I didn't pull that card up. There's just some weird stuff on it. But the Giratina was moving. It is still up 46%. It's kind of dipping a little bit. If we go to the past month, it's only down 2%, right, in the past month. But it peaked at 710, just end of February, early March, right? So just in the last 3 months, it went from 450 to 700, and now it's down in the 600 range ish. Similar chart as well. A year ago, this was a $280 card, if you can believe that. 480 during the alt art boom, and then it came back down and settled at 325, 326 ish was the low, before shooting up to 700, now kind of 600 ish for the Giratina. Lowest listed right now, if you want to pick one up, you can pick one up for around 600 from a starred seller, which would be below market currently, and they do have photos, so if you want to check that out, that is available. Then we have some other cards that are moving from the set. So Evolving Skies is like doing its thing, and Lost Origins kind of doing a different thing, you'll notice, and then Fusion Strike's even doing a little bit of a different thing. So they're kind of like, while the main cards, the alternate arts, are kind of all doing the same thing, right? Seems like the bigger ones, aren't moving as much, but then we have the lesser cards from each set, and I know there's a lot of big ones from Evolving, but like for example, the Aerodactyl right here from Lost Origin still moving up right now. It's up 41%. From $101 to around 140. We do have a most recent sale at 170, but before that, 140s, another 170 down here. So we'll see where this one ends up if it continues to push. It is a nice looking card. I do like this alternate art. Lowest listed's around 140, which is below current market. So that is something to note. If we zoom out right here, you can see a year ago, $88 card. It has been here before, kind of at this price point during the alt art boom, right? It went to 140, and then it settled down like around 96 was the low, which was barely above where it was before, which usually isn't something you want to see. Shows not as much interest in the card. You usually want to see them set a higher low after a big run, and then we're just barely past this old high. So something to note on the Aerodactyl is it just hasn't quite gotten enough drive to really push past this old high. But then you have some of the other cards I noticed that were moving from this set are a lot of the lesser cards from the Lost Origin, the trainer gallery. Has a nice trainer gallery, like this Gengar. I know we're going from like expensive cards to cheaper cards, but this is just what I noticed for cards that were moving. The Gengar, we talked about this card recently and some of the other ones, but it's up 152%. In the past 3 months, and then it's still up 35% in the past month, but it has fallen off a little bit off of this $21 high, down to around 18, 19. There's a ton of copies of this card still available on TCG Player, over 200, right? So that's important to note. You can pick one up right now for around 17 if you include shipping, which is below market. So we'll see how low this one falls with this high of supply. It'll be something interesting to note. Usually it's kind of a race to the bottom to get sales. But you can see a year ago, this was a $2 or $3 card, so this is an interesting one. Gengar obviously demanding a lot of attention, extremely popular Pokemon, but $2 to $3. Be careful buying at these highs. I do like these trainer gallery cards though. We've talked about them before. Same with the Sleepy Pikachu here. This one's up pretty big, 143%. We won't spend too much time on this. It's similar to the Gengar here, right? A lot more copies available though. 317 on this guy, so be careful there. And then similar thing with the Charizard as well. But these are just the ones that I noticed that were moving the most from the set. The Aerodactyl and then some of the lesser cards. You do have those Pikachu cards from Lost Origin that I do like a lot. The VMAX and the V. I prefer the V personally between the two. And those haven't really. Those are kind of they are a little bit on the decline right now. I can't pull up every card from every set. I know I get in the videos they go, well, what about this card? And I was like, I know, I'm sorry, I can't touch on every single card from the set in every single video. It would be too long. We'd be at like a 2-hour video touching on every card from these 3 sets. So the Charizard, it did peak around 14-ish, 13, and now it's down to around 12. Once again, a lot of copies available, but just something I noticed that these ones were moving, uh, these trainer gallery cards, so just keep an eye on those. The last set that I wanted to talk about was the Fusion Strike, and you can see, this is one where this one shot up big. It was pretty much around 400 bucks, went from 300 to 400, sorry, 300 to 500. We're gonna call this 490. There was definitely sales in the 500s in this period, and then from there it really cooled off, cooled off, cooled off, cooled off, and then it settled down around 430, and that's where we're seeing this big spike, right? Similar to Lost Origin. If we look on the 1 month chart, is it the same day? It is. February 27th. You can see a lot of purchases on Fusion Strike as well. And then the price started to climb, and now we're at 470, 480 sales. Some as low as 460, and one as high as 490 for the recent sales on the Fusion Strike box. So that's what we're seeing. If we zoom out right here, the 1-year chart is broken, so that's not going to work. Some of the charts are not cooperating, but 6 months ago we can see $210 on the Fusion Strike box. And so the alt art, the Gengar alt art, this is one that's it's been in a little bit of a decline. You can see right here on the 1 month chart, down 8%. Okay, so this one's down. It's cooling off a little bit. We'll see where it bottoms out and levels off. It's kind of similar to the Giratina. It just couldn't hold in the 7s, and now it's down into the 600s. Before that, it was sub 500 right here 3 months ago. And if you want to kick yourself, we can play that game and look at the 1-year chart. 1 year ago, $212 card, the Gengar VMAX. It did shoot up during the alt art boom, around 410, and then settled down around 300 was the low. And it sat at 300 for July through, we're going to say all the way through November, right? It's before it started to run. July through November, this card was at that price, and now we're in the high 6s. 52 copies of this one available. Lowest listed right here, $670, which is a little bit below current market for the Gengar VMAX. Then you have, like I said, some of the lesser cards moving, right? Not the top chases, but some of the lesser cards. Like I said, the Rayquaza from evolving, like the 2 and 3 spots, a lot of those moving. Not all of them in Fusion though, right? This is kind of the one that's moving. The Eeveelution, so it does make sense. Very popular, following a lot of the prismatic hype still, I feel. 3 months ago, this was $227, and now we're at 330. So this one still comparatively has quite a ways to go to catch up to those other Eeveelutions that are at or near the $400 mark. So a little bit ways to go if you're trying to value them all equally. Technically, this one would be undervalued. I don't know how much of it being not in Evolving Skies and in Fusion Strike is holding it down. So that's something interesting. But yeah, 337 most recent sales, 320s, which actually is a little bit below market. One higher at 373. 1-year chart, you can see what happened before. So this one's a little bit more interesting as well. 130 a year ago. It did shoot up to, you can see it hasn't gotten back to that old alt art boom high, right? And this one, it came back down to 180, 185, and now we're at 337. So we're still not actually technically back to this old high. So that is something that's interesting. That the Espeon, like I said, maybe it's just because it's in Fusion Strike, it's just not quite getting some of the attention, that the other ones are getting from Evolving Skies. So it has just a little ways to go to get back to this point, but it did set a higher low, so that is nice to see. That shows some strength. You can pick one up right now for 320, currently lowest listed, which is below market. So we'll see if this one continues to move, but it is up, continuing to climb slowly. Well, not slowly, slowly more recently is what I should say. In the past month, up 6%, right? So it's kind of slowed down a little bit. Then you have some of the other cards that popped off. We talked about this card, the Mew VMAX. This one's on the decline in the past month, right? Down 6%. It shot up to as high as 200. It was sub 100 3 months ago, went over 2. Now it's kind of trickling down a little bit, down into the 170s, 160 range for the Mew VMAX. Then you have the Celebi, which I think is like, I don't know. This is one of those underrated alternate arts still. I really like this card, the Celebi. I think it's a really nice looking art. Maybe Celebi's just not as popular as I envision in my mind. I feel like a lot of people used to like Celebi. But anyways, This card is still up 40% ish on the 3 months, and the 1 month chart is going to show some decline. See, down around 14% on the Celebi. So this one just wasn't able to hold in the $60 mark. It's not too crazy, like going from 60s to the 50s, but percentage wise, it's a little bit of a hit. This is a nice looking alternate art. I do like this card. The 1 year chart looks like this. A year ago, this was a $23 card. It shot up as high as 40s, came back down and settled back in the 20s, but it was like upper 20s. And then obviously declining off of this $67 mark here, slowly into the 50s. A lot more of this one available, you can see. So the demand just isn't quite there for the Celebi. 156 copies of this alternate art available on TCG Player. And last sold's all pretty consistently in the 50s. So nothing crazy here. But you can see how like all these sets are doing like similar but kind of different things. It's a little bit different ebb and flow between them all. Then lastly, last one we're going to talk about, definitely a lesser card of the set dollar wise, $20 Gengar. But this is the one where if you can't afford the big one, you can get the other VMAX that has the tongue sticking out. Not nearly as cool, but this one's up 66%. 3 months ago, this was a $13 card, and now we're, once again, dollar wise, maybe not the biggest gains, but this one's continuing to climb 66% up. If we zoom out right here, a year ago, this was a $6 card, and then it didn't really have much of a push until more recently. It did jump up into the tens, teens kind of ish, and then yeah, so it's been climbing fairly steady, up 251% on the past year. Just a lesser card. It's not too crazy, but maybe if you didn't know, if you had this in your binder somewhere, just know that it's up 251%. 300 copies available, right? So once again, a lot of these lesser cards, they have a lot of supply available, so keep that in mind as well. That can be a factor. Lowest listed, last one, $22 right here, which is right at market price. So it's like market price holding on the Gengar. So that's all I have for this one, guys. We just wanted to do a little Pokemon market update, touch on some Sword and Shield sets, some singles that were moving, booster boxes that are moving, some moving, some not, depending on which set you look at. I just wanted to touch on the three. I kind of regard these as like the big three. Obviously, Evolving Skies being the top, and then your Fusion and your LO fighting out for the second place. I can hear the argument both ways for what's better for the second best set. So I know, once again, I'm sorry we didn't get to touch on all the other sets. Right, I can't make the videos over an hour long to touch on all of them in one video. Although maybe I should. Maybe I honestly should. I guess I could do that, but I feel like people wouldn't want to watch that long of a video. So that's all I have for this one. Enter the giveaway if you haven't entered. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of you guys watching, even if you don't comment. If you're this far in the video and you're not already subscribed, obviously you enjoyed it enough to watch 23 minutes of me talking and rambling about Pokemon cards. So do yourself a favor, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and then if you could leave a comment, enter the giveaway, I would greatly appreciate it. But that's all I have for this one. I'll catch you guys in the next one. And remember, it was never a phase.